What happens when Hollywood's most legendary tough guy loses his cool on live television? In just 46 seconds, everything falls apart. Subscribe now for daily videos exposing Hollywood's darkest scandals. Last night on The Kelly Clarkson Show, what started as a simple conversation about Harrison Ford's latest project turned into one of the most explosive moments in daytime television history. The tension in the studio was thick enough to cut with a knife, and nobody saw what was coming. What unfolded over the next several minutes would go down as one of the most shocking confrontations ever captured on daytime TV. Kelly started off friendly, like she always does. She was smiling, welcoming Harrison to the stage with her usual warmth and enthusiasm. The audience clapped loudly as he walked out, waving casually to the crowd. He sat down in the guest chair, adjusted his jacket, and seemed ready for what everyone thought would be a normal chat about his career and upcoming work. But something was different about him that day. His jaw was tight, his body language was closed off, his answers were short and clipped, and there was a look in his eyes that suggested he wasn't in the mood for games. "Harrison! Welcome, welcome," Kelly said enthusiastically, her signature smile lighting up her face. "Thank you so much for being here today. We're so excited to have you on the show." "Thanks for having me," Harrison replied flatly, not matching her energy at all. His tone was cold, almost bored. Kelly didn't let it faze her initially. She's a professional. She knows sometimes guests need a minute to warm up and get comfortable. "So, your new movie is absolutely incredible. I got to see an early screening last week, and I was literally on the edge of my seat the whole time. It's intense, emotional, just fantastic work. Tell us about your character. What drew you to this particular role?" Harrison paused for a beat too long before answering, staring at Kelly like he was deciding whether the question was even worth answering. "It's a guy who's dealing with some stuff. Pretty straightforward role, really." The audience chuckled nervously, not sure if he was joking or being serious. Kelly's smile tightened slightly, but she pushed forward. "Well, I think it's a bit more complex than that. The character goes through this amazing transformation throughout the film. He starts in one place emotionally and ends up somewhere completely different." "Was there a particular scene that was especially challenging for you to film?" "They were all challenging," Harrison said, looking off to the side instead of at Kelly, avoiding eye contact completely. "That's the job. Acting is challenging. That's why they pay us." Kelly laughed, but there was a hint of confusion and growing discomfort in it. She was starting to realize this wasn't just first interview jitters. "Okay, yes. Acting is challenging, of course. But I mean, was there a specific moment that really stood out to you? Maybe an emotional scene that made you dig deep, or an action sequence that pushed you physically in a new direction, or made you see the character differently. Anything that surprised you about the process?" "Not really. Nothing that stands out particularly. We showed up every day, we did the work, we went home. That's how movies get made. There's nothing particularly special or remarkable about it. It's just work." The energy in the studio was starting to shift noticeably. You could feel the atmosphere changing from excited and happy to confused and uncomfortable. The audience members were picking up on the tension. Kelly glanced down at her note cards, her smile becoming more strained, trying to find a different angle to approach this from, some way to get Harrison to open up or at least engage with her in a meaningful way. "All right. Well, let's talk about working with your director then. You two have known each other for years, haven't you? There's clearly history there between you two. What was it like collaborating with someone you have that kind of long-standing professional relationship with? Did that familiarity make things easier, or maybe more challenging in interesting ways?" Harrison's expression actually darkened visibly at this question. His eyebrows furrowed deeply, and his mouth turned into something close to a scowl. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. "It was fine. Nothing special. Just fine," Kelly pressed, still trying her best to keep things light and conversational. "Come on, give us something here. The two of you created some incredible scenes together. There must be some interesting stories from the set. Look, we made a movie. That's what we do in this industry. I don't know what else you want me to say about it. There's nothing interesting to tell. The audience was fully uncomfortable now. You could see people shifting in their seats, looking at each other with confused expressions, wondering what was happening. Some were whispering to the people next to them. This wasn't the Harrison Ford they knew from other interviews over the years. This wasn't the funny, charming guy who told great stories about his adventures in filmmaking. This was someone completely different. Someone hostile and dismissive. Kelly set down her note cards for a moment and looked at him directly. She was still smiling, but it wasn't reaching her eyes anymore. There was concern there, and maybe a little bit of frustration starting to build. Harrison, I have to ask this because the elephant in the room is getting pretty big here. Is everything okay? You seem a little off today. Is something bothering you? Harrison looked at her for a long moment. The silence stretched out uncomfortably. You could hear a pin drop in that studio. The cameras captured every second of it, the tension building with each passing breath. Then he said, I'm fine, Kelly. Just tired of answering the same damn questions everywhere I go. It gets old. The audience gasped collectively. This was the Kelly Clarkson Show, a family-friendly daytime talk show. People don't usually swear here. Kelly's smile faltered for just a second before she recovered, but you could see the flash of something in her eyes. Surprise? Anger? Maybe both. Well, I'm sorry you feel that way, she said, her voice still controlled but with a definite edge to it now. But that's kind of what talk shows are about, you know? Talking, having conversations, connecting with the audience who wants to hear from you. Harrison didn't laugh. He didn't even crack a smile. Instead, he leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms defensively across his chest. Yeah, I know what talk shows are about, Kelly. I've been doing this for over 40 years. What I don't know is why I keep agreeing to do them when nobody asks anything interesting anymore. It's all the same surface-level crap, over and over again. Kelly's face changed dramatically. You could see the shift happen in real time. Her friendly demeanor started to crack, revealing something harder underneath. Interesting? She repeated, her voice rising slightly in pitch. Harrison, I've done my research. I've prepared questions about your career, your passions, your creative process, your new film. I've watched all your previous work to prepare for this interview. What exactly would you consider interesting? Something real, Harrison shot back. Leaning forward now, getting more animated. Not this scripted, sugar-coated garbage that you people feed to audiences to make everyone feel good about themselves. Ask me something that actually matters. Ask me something that requires me to think, instead of just regurgitating the same talking points my publicist gave me before I walked out here. The studio went dead silent. Kelly set down her cards with more force than necessary. The sound of them hitting the table echoed through the quiet studio. You know what? Fine. Let's talk about something real then. Let's drop the pleasantries and have the conversation you apparently want to have. She looked directly at Harrison, and her voice dropped lower, more serious, more confrontational. Let's talk about the rumors that you've been impossible to work with on this film's set. Let's talk about the reports that you walked off the movie 3 times during production. That you got into screaming matches with multiple crew members. That people were literally afraid to approach you between takes. Is that real enough for you? Harrison's eyes narrowed dangerously. His whole body tensed up. Who the hell told you that? It doesn't matter who told me, Kelly said, her voice getting stronger now, more confident. She wasn't backing down. The audience could see her transformation happening too. What matters is whether it's true or not. You want real conversation? Let's have it. Were you difficult to work with or not? Did you walk off set multiple times like the reports say? Did you create a hostile environment for the people trying to do their jobs around you? Harrison's face was turning red. You could see his jaw clenching repeatedly, the muscles in his neck tightening visibly. That's nobody's damn business but mine and the people I work with. You don't know a single thing about what happened on that set. You don't know what I was dealing with. You don't know the incompetence I had to put up with. Then tell me, Kelly challenged, leaning forward in her chair, matching his energy. You're sitting here complaining, that I'm not asking real questions, that everything is too surface level and scripted. Well, here's your chance. Explain it to me. Explain to this audience. What were you dealing with that made you act that way? What justified that kind of behavior? I don't have to explain a damn thing to you or anyone else watching this show. Harrison snapped back angrily. You want to know what happened? Fine. I walked off that set because the director was an incompetent idiot who didn't know what the hell he was doing. He couldn't make a decision to save his life. He wasted everyone's time. There. That real enough for you? You want me to trash people on your happy little show? Is that what this is about? You want drama for your ratings? The audience was completely silent now. Some people had their hands over their mouths in shock. Others were leaning forward, unable to believe what they were witnessing unfold in real time. This was not normal talk show behavior. This was something else entirely. Something raw and ugly and uncomfortable to watch. Kelly's expression hardened significantly. No, Harrison. This is about you coming onto my show with a terrible attitude from the second you sat down in that chair and then complaining that I'm not asking the right questions. You can't have it both ways. Either you want to be here and have a real conversation like an adult, or you don't. But don't sit in that chair and act like you're above all this when you agreed to come here in the first place. Nobody forced you to walk through that door. My publicist forced me, Harrison said bitterly, his voice dripping with resentment. My studio forced me. I'm here because I have contractual obligations, not because I want to be. Let's just be completely honest about that. This is all just part of the machine, the publicity machine that doesn't mean anything. Kelly shook her head, and you could see genuine anger flashing in her eyes now, not just frustration. You know what your problem is, Harrison? You think because you're some legendary actor, because you've been in iconic movies that people love, that everyone owes you something, that everyone should just accept whatever mood you're in and work around it, that you can treat people however you want because of who you are. Well, I don't owe you anything. This audience doesn't owe you anything. We invited you here to celebrate your work, and you've done nothing but disrespect everyone in this room. I never said anyone owed me anything, Harrison growled, his voice low and dangerous. You didn't have to say it, Kelly shot back. Your attitude says it loud and clear. You've been acting like this whole thing is beneath you from the moment you walked out here. Well, you know what? If it's so beneath you, if this show is so terrible and pointless, then why don't you just leave? Why don't you walk out right now? Harrison stood up slightly in his chair, his hands gripping the armrests so hard his knuckles were turning white. Maybe I will. Then do it, Kelly said, standing up as well now. Her voice was shaking slightly with emotion, but she held her ground firmly. If you hate it so much, if I'm such a terrible host and my show is such garbage, then go. Walk out. Nobody's forcing you to stay here and torture yourself with our terrible questions. You think this is easy? Harrison said, his voice rising to almost a shout. You think showing up to these things day after day, answering the same stupid questions, pretending to care about promoting a movie that's probably going to be forgotten in 6 months, you think that's easy? I'm tired of it. I'm tired of all of it. Then stop doing it, Kelly shouted back, her composure finally breaking completely. If you hate doing interviews so much, if you hate promoting your work, then tell your publicist no. Tell the studio no. You're Harrison Ford. You have that power. But don't come on my show and take out your frustration on me and my audience who did nothing wrong except want to hear from you. The audience started clapping for Kelly, slowly at first, then building into full applause. They were on her side completely. Harrison looked around at the clapping audience, his expression something between anger and disbelief. This is bullshit, he muttered, loud enough for the microphone to pick up. Excuse me? Kelly said, her voice sharp and incredulous. I said this is bullshit, Harrison repeated, louder this time, making sure everyone could hear him. This whole dog and pony show, you pretending to care about my answers, the audience pretending to care about my career. It's all fake. Every single bit of it is manufactured nonsense. Kelly's hands were shaking now, but her voice remained steady. Fake? You think these people are fake? They took time out of their day to come here and see you. They're fans of your work. They respect what you've done in this industry. And you're calling them fake? I'm calling this whole system fake, Harrison clarified, gesturing around the studio. This isn't real conversation. This isn't real connection. It's performed authenticity. It's a script pretending to be spontaneous. You know exactly what you're going to ask me before I sit down. I know exactly what I'm supposed to say. Where's the authenticity in that? The authenticity is in trying, Kelly fired back. The authenticity is in making an effort to connect with people, even within the constraints of the format. You could have brought something real to this conversation. You could have opened up, shared something meaningful, made this interview actually interesting, like you claim you want. But instead you showed up with a chip on your shoulder and decided to make everyone else miserable too. Harrison laughed, but it was cold and harsh. You want me to bare my soul on daytime television? Is that what you're asking for? I'm asking you to show basic human decency. Kelly's voice cracked as she said it. That's all. Just basic respect for the people around you. Is that really too much to ask? Maybe it is when those people are part of a system I despise, Harrison said coldly. The audience gasped again. This was getting worse by the second. Kelly's face went through shock, hurt, and then settled on determination. Get out, she said suddenly, her voice quiet but firm as steel. Seriously, get out of my studio right now. Harrison stared at her for a long moment, like he couldn't believe she was actually kicking him off her show. What? You heard me, Kelly said, her voice getting louder. Get out. If everything here is so fake and terrible, if we're all so beneath you, then leave. I'm done. This interview is over. Take off your microphone and get out. Harrison reached up and unclipped his microphone from his shirt, his movements sharp and angry. You know what? Fine. Gladly. This has been a complete waste of my time anyway. Keep telling yourself that you're the victim here, Harrison, Kelly said, her voice trembling with anger and hurt. Keep telling yourself that everyone else is the problem. Maybe someday you'll look in the mirror and realize the truth. And what truth is that? Harrison challenged, holding the microphone in his hand. That you've become exactly what you always said you'd never be. A bitter, angry person who's forgotten how lucky they are. Who's forgotten that people actually care about your work and want to support you, but you're so wrapped up in your own misery that you can't see it anymore. Harrison's face went through several emotions in quick succession. Anger, surprise, hurt, then back to anger. He dropped his microphone onto the chair where it landed with a thud. I don't have to listen to this. No, you don't, Kelly agreed. The door's right there. Use it. Harrison turned and started walking toward the exit. The cameras followed him as he moved past the audience, his stride quick and purposeful. People were murmuring loudly now. Some were pointing. Others had their phones out trying to record this moment. He didn't look back, didn't acknowledge anyone. He just kept walking with that same stern, angry expression on his face, his jaw set tight. Kelly stood on the stage, watching him go. Her chest was rising and falling quickly, and you could see she was trying hard to compose herself. The audience didn't know whether to clap, to boo, or to stay silent. Most of them just sat there in complete shock, trying to process what they'd just witnessed. Harrison reached the door at the back of the studio. He grabbed the handle and yanked it open with more force than necessary, the door slamming against the wall. For just a second, he paused in the doorway, turned partially back toward the stage. Everyone in the studio held their breath collectively. The cameras zoomed in tight on his face, capturing every detail of his expression. He opened his mouth like he was going to say something else, like maybe he was going to apologize or try to salvage this complete disaster of an interview. His face showed conflict, like part of him knew he'd gone too far. But then his expression hardened again, pride and stubbornness winning out over any potential remorse. He just shook his head slowly, turned away, and walked through the door, letting it swing shut behind him with a loud bang that echoed through the silent studio like a gunshot. The sound of that door closing felt final, absolute. There was no coming back from this. Kelly let out a long, shaky breath that you could hear even through her microphone. She looked out at the audience, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Okay," she said, her voice barely above a whisper at first, still processing what had just happened. Then louder, forcing strength into her voice. "Okay. That was intense. That was really, really intense. I apologize to all of you for having to witness that. This is not how we do things on this show. This is not what we stand for." The audience burst into immediate thunderous applause, showing their complete support for Kelly. People were on their feet within seconds. She smiled weakly, clearly still deeply shaken by what had just happened. Her hands were still trembling visibly at her sides. Tears were forming in her eyes despite her best efforts, but she was fighting them back with everything she had, trying to maintain her composure for the audience. "I've interviewed hundreds of people on this show," Kelly continued, her voice getting stronger as she spoke, drawing strength from the audience's support. "Hundreds of celebrities, musicians, actors, athletes, authors, directors, people from all walks of life and all backgrounds. And never, not once in all these years, have I had someone treat me or this audience with such complete and utter contempt, with such disrespect. I don't know what happened in Harrison's life to make him feel that way, what he's going through personally, and honestly, at this point, I don't care. There's no excuse for that kind of behavior. There's no justification for treating people like that. None whatsoever." The applause got even louder, swelling throughout the studio. People were standing up now, more and more of them, giving Kelly a well-deserved standing ovation for how she handled this impossible situation. Some people in the audience were wiping away their own tears, moved by Kelly's vulnerability and strength. She pressed her hand to her chest, clearly deeply moved by their support, overwhelmed by the outpouring of love from complete strangers who had just watched her get attacked on her own show. "Thank you," she said, her voice cracking significantly with emotion now. A single tear rolled down her cheek, and she quickly wiped it away. "Thank you so, so much for being here, and for supporting this show, and what we try to do here every single day. We believe in kindness. We believe in respect. We believe in lifting people up, not tearing them down. And we're going to take a quick break to regroup and collect ourselves, and when we come back, we're going to remember exactly why we do this. Why we celebrate people and their stories and their achievements, and try to bring a little joy and positivity into the world, even when the world feels dark." As they cut to commercial, you could see Kelly's professional mask finally slip completely. Her shoulders sagged. The strength she'd been projecting crumbled. The hurt and shock showed clearly across her face now that the cameras weren't rolling. She looked small and vulnerable in a way she hadn't during the confrontation. Her producers rushed over to her immediately, surrounding her with support and reassurance. Her makeup artist came running with tissues. Everyone on the crew looked stunned, in shock, trying to process what they'd just been part of. Kelly was nodding at whatever her producers were saying to her, but you could see she wasn't really hearing them. She was still in shock herself, replaying the confrontation in her mind, probably wondering if she could have handled it differently, if there was something she could have said or done to prevent it from escalating the way it did. Meanwhile, according to multiple people who were backstage and in the parking lot, Harrison didn't stop walking until he reached his car. His publicist tried desperately to catch up with him, calling his name, practically jogging to keep pace with his angry stride. He didn't even turn around, didn't acknowledge her at all. Production staff members stepped aside as he barreled through, not wanting to be in his path. Security guards exchanged uncomfortable glances but didn't try to stop him. Everyone could see the fury radiating off him in waves. When his publicist finally caught up to him at his car, she tried to talk to him, tried to do damage control, tried to understand what had just happened, and how they were going to fix this public relations nightmare. But Harrison wasn't having any of it. He said something to her, something sharp and dismissive, that made her step back with her hands up in surrender. Then he got in his car, slammed the door hard enough that people nearby flinched, and peeled out of the parking lot, tires squealing against the pavement. He left behind one of the most shocking and uncomfortable confrontations in the entire history of daytime talk shows. An interview that started awkward, turned hostile, and ended with a legendary actor being kicked off a show in front of a live studio audience and television cameras capturing every excruciating moment. Harrison Ford stormed off the Kelly Clarkson show, and nothing would ever be quite the same.